Is Barry Trotz going to be a buyer or seller when that Christmas deadline arrives? We're going to tell you what we think and who he could be looking at getting. Plus, tonight, the Preds play the New York Rangers. We're going to have your game preview and tell you how the outcome of this game could have some significant consequences.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy game day, everyone, and welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to, of course, kick off this game day episode welcoming any first-time listeners and giving that cyber shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and to our everydayers. We appreciate your support and we love getting through this Nashville Predators season all together. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Barry Trotz mentioned a Christmas deadline to see what this Nashville Predators roster could do. Today, we're going to talk about, is Barry Trotz out shopping? And if he is, who may he be shopping for? Plus, it is a game day. The New York Rangers are coming to town. Former Preds coach Peter Laviolette bringing his team here. Interesting scenario with the two coaches of these two teams. We're going to preview that game and talk about the consequences to a Rangers loss and a Predators loss. We're going to cover all of that. Before we dive into all of the Nashville Predators topics for the day, we do want to let you know that the college football playoff is here. You do not want to miss a moment of the action. The college football playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games. Those are on December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. All right, Emma, a lot of interesting things to dive into on a game day, and we are going to get to our Rangers preview, but kind of want to talk about this Christmas deadline that Barry Trotz put out there a while ago. And of course, we know that if there are going to be roster moves ahead of Christmas, they got to get snapping, because there comes a point in time around the holidays where you can't do anything. And so the question is Barry Trotz going to add or subtract or stay the same, Emma? Now, you can go ahead and introduce us to the rumors that are out there, but just kind of overarching, how do you think Barry is approaching this Christmas-ish deadline?
Well, as you said, it's Christmas-ish, not Christmas, because the annual holiday roster freeze happens, kicks in December 20th at midnight. And so at that point, no one can make any moves from then until December 27th, I believe. So that doesn't mean that they won't be talking and doing things behind the scenes. But if he wants a move to actually be done by Christmas, it really needs to be done by December 20th. Mm-hmm. That being said, I just think if we look at the way Barry Trotz has approached his job really over the last 2 years, it's been that a very measured approach. It's been, he's not going to make a move just for the sake of making a move, like just to save face with anyone or anything like that. He's only going to make a move if he truly believes that it's going to benefit the team. And when you talk about adding versus subtracting, I think in this case, because of the Predators' current cap situation being what it is, if they want to add a significant piece to the NHL roster that's going to help them right now, realistically speaking, they're probably going to have to subtract in order to do that, in order to have the cap space to make that happen. I think right now they have around $4 million. That's not including the Ryan Johansson money, because we still don't know what the deal is with that. I think, the rumor that has been out there, and I mean, a rumor with some credence to it, is that the Predators have been among the teams calling and asking the Buffalo Sabres about Dylan Cozens. And
yes, this is an interesting rumor. I'm here for this juicy little one.
Yeah, I mean, Barry Trotz has said that he wants to get younger, and presumably that meant, through the draft and developing, and that still is the case. I mean, we still got, 3 first-round picks next year?
Mhm.
So I think that's still the case, but Dylan Cozens, former first-round pick, number 7 overall,
Yeah.
I believe, by Buffalo in 2019. He's a 23-year-old center. Now he's been playing on the wing in Buffalo of late. He's a little bit of a question mark just in terms of like he comes at a $7.1 million cap hit, which is not nothing, especially for
Right.
first team that does not have a lot of cap space to work with. So he's signed long term until, through the 2029-2030 season. And he's a guy though that, age, position, he's a big guy. He could theoretically fit what the Predators are looking for because they need to add depth down the middle. And Barry Trotz has said that remains an area of priority for him. So they would have to obviously be able to maneuver the cap to be able to make that work financially. But then they would also have to give Buffalo's going to be looking for a hockey trade for this. And by that, I mean, they're not looking for draft picks. They're not looking for, lower level prospects. They are looking for NHL roster players. That's not to say that there wouldn't be a prospect or two, or maybe
Involved.
part of
Yeah.
the deal, but that alone is not going to get this done.
Yeah.
And so the question is, do the Predators have what Buffalo is looking for? Now, Buffalo's in an interesting situation because they've lost 10 in a row, and
Yeah.
it's a
It's
very
rough
precarious
going in Buffalo.
situation over there. So, there could be other kinds of personnel moves, including, maybe the front office. It's a fluid situation. And the Predators are certainly not the only team calling about Cozens ever since it was kind of floated out there that he would be made available. So he's a guy that, he's 2 years removed from, I think, a 31 goal
Yep.
season or 30
Yep. And
season.
22-23. Yep. 31
Yeah, but
goals.
then I think he had like 18 last year, and he's got 6 goals, I believe, this year through 31 games.
Mhm.
So I think that also it's hard to judge. Again, I will admit I haven't spent a lot of time watching him play. So I don't know how much of that has to do with the team around him, the system, the circumstance he's in. I don't know. But again, I think that Barry Trotz absolutely would love the fact that this kid is only 23 years old. He is
Yes.
signed through his age 29 season, and the finances are gonna be the issue here. And if they can make that work, might not be a bad idea if he believes that there are expendable pieces on Nashville's roster, which I think I'm sure a lot of the fans believe that there are. But it depends on what he can do there. Because again, keep in mind, a lot of the stars, the big guns, have no move clauses, no trade clauses. I believe Jonathan Marchessault has a modified no trade. And then you could trade Gus Nyquist, but he's a UFA after this year anyway, so that's not really that
Mhm.
valuable of an asset at this point. You could trade Ryan O'Reilly, but that also doesn't help you. It
Yeah.
doesn't help what the Predators need, which is
No.
more depth at center. So
Yeah.
it's like, yes, technically his contract is tradable, but it's not really going to help with what they need. So
No,
I just think that there's definitely credence to the rumors, and knowing Barry, he has called
Mhm.
and asked about, he's certainly kicked the tires, and I would not be surprised if there were a trade. I would not be surprised if a player like, for example, a Tommy Novak was involved.
Yeah, I was thinking about a Tommy Novak. They've talked about is Juuso Parson and somebody that they're going to keep working on. That's another player that I think you want to keep in mind with this. The one thing that I do want to say, and I thought this was really interesting, is as the part of kind of this bigger conversation about Dylan Cozens, And Nashville may be one of the teams that's making calls on Cozens. Part of the headline was, and Stamkos isn't going anywhere. And you and I were texting about that yesterday. We were texting about duh. Of course, Stamkos is not going anywhere. He has a no move clause.
Again, we've talked about that there's enough meat on the bone and we don't need to make up things that are problems when they're really not. Like Steven Stamkos not being a fit with this team or not vibing with the locker room, that is so not one of them. I think it was just one of those things that obviously he had a slow start, as did the entire team, mind you, minus UC Saros. But everyone was like, oh, it must be because, the room hasn't accepted him or he's not a fit there.
That's not a thing.
It's not that.
This is a guy who is not interested in uprooting his family because he had a slow start to a long contract. So I think we just need to be careful about how casually people are like, no move clause, but we could talk him into it, or he might want to go. No move clause. We're just not going to have that conversation. Coming up, we are going to have a conversation about this New York Rangers game tonight. This one could be really interesting, Emma, and it could also have some really interesting implications down the road. Today's episode is brought to you by Built. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you are stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It is time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. You can use points to jet off on a dream vacation. You can put your points towards a flight or a hotel stay. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes. You can redeem them toward a future rent payment. They are designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay your rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. So earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnHL. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnHL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Again, joinbuilt.com/lockedonnHL to start earning points with your rent payment today. The World Series, the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup Finals, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safe. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. These policies are more affordable than you think. You could get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnHL today to get started. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnHL. Today is a game day, and this is an interesting one. The New York Rangers come into town. This is the first of a 4-game homestand for the Predators. They are in a 3-way tie for second to the last place in the Metro Division, which is actually probably a confusing way of saying they're not where they think they should be. They are 15-14-1. They are 3-7-0 in their last 10 games. Those 3 wins came against Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Montreal. So it's a little bit tough going there for the Rangers. A lot going on with this Ranger team as well. And of course, former Nashville Predators head coach Peter Laviolette behind the bench. And I heard a phrase, or I read a phrase talking about Peter Laviolette and the line blender. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in a time warp. I feel like I've heard the phrase line blender and Laviolette in the same sentence before somewhere. When you look at this Rangers team, Emma, what jumps out at you, and what is the hitch in their giddy up right now?
Well, it's kind of a conundrum, because they have a similar to the Predators in the sense that they are vastly underperforming expectations this year. I mean, remember, this is the team that won the President's Trophy last year.
Yes.
And they really haven't lost like any major pieces of that team. They just re-signed or extended rather Igor Shesterkin to that giant contract extension.
Fat contract.
He has been fantastic. Again, very much like the Predators. UC Saros and Justus Anonen now have been fantastic. But Shesterkin has been like, even the games that they've won, have been because of Shesterkin. And the games that they've lost have not been because of Shesterkin, if that makes sense. Because I think that he is that kind of, he's in that elite goaltender category where he can steal games and save games for this team. The problem is this team is not producing enough offense. Sound familiar? But I think that it's just, it is very interesting because obviously I mentioned earlier the whole Jacob Trouba situation. He was ultimately traded. I think that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because clearly he had been on the trade block for the last year, really. And it became very public. He clearly wasn't comfortable with that. And then they essentially threatened him to put him on waivers. And he said, fine, I'll accept a trade to Anaheim. So they did that. And I think that, from everything I've heard and everything I've read about this is that, the rest of the players, really kind of took note of that. And that was supposed to be, you would think, like with a dramatic move, trading your captain like that, you would think that, okay, this is going to be the kind of dramatic shakeup that they need to really turn things around because, like you said, they lost 7 of the last 10, I think 9 of their last 12. Like it has not been good. So I think that they tried to shake up their roster. It didn't work. They they signed their goaltender. That's kind of a non-factor here though, because he is like not a problem with this
doing
roster.
the things. Yeah.
He's doing the things. But then again, just like Nashville, a lot of these guys, like I think Mika Zibanejad has a no move or no trade. Like he's there. I mean, even guys like Chris Kreider and Vincent Trocheck are not performing kind of up to the standard that they set for themselves last year. So they've tried the things. They've tried to do the big shakeup and nothing has worked yet. So this is not, again, total speculation on my part. This is not any reporting. I haven't heard anything to this effect. As a matter of fact, I have explicitly not heard this. So I am just bringing this up. Why have we not heard this? I feel like Peter Laviolette's seat should be a little bit warmer than it is right now.
It is shocking to me that because I keep waiting. You get up and you check scores and you scroll thinking, okay, this is the day.
Right.
Not been the day yet.
You hear all kinds of names, like obviously Andrew Brunette. You hear Marty St. Louis in Montreal has, is he going to be fired? Derek Lalonde in Detroit. But no one's talking about Peter Laviolette. And it's like, well, it is interesting how this is 2 teams who have been vastly underperforming expectations. And the expectations were slightly different for each team. I mean, I think the expectations for the Rangers were a lot higher. I had them making the Stanley Cup final this year.
So many people did.
That's not looking too good right now. And so I think, and granted, they're in a very tough division, the Metro, also Nashville, very tough division in the Central. So it's like, but they still, more was expected of them. And so it's interesting, the sort of the juxtaposition here, because you've got 2 coaches with underperforming teams. Andrew Brunette, everyone was so quick to be like, yep, fire him, get him out of here. And Peter Laviolette, you're not really hearing that. And it's just interesting to me.
Yeah. I love what you say too about like, remember that they've done big things to try to kind of shake the team out of it. And I think there is a lesson there for Nashville Predators fans because moving a big, I mean, you moved your captain. And like you said, I mean, you didn't have to be Scooby-Doo to figure out that they were maybe headed this direction with Jacob Trouba. But moving your captain and doing it in the way that you did it, like you said, every player in that locker room saw how that went down and knows how that went down. And you moved your captain and it hasn't moved the needle. And there is a lesson in that, I think, for Predators fans who say you need to, Dante Fabro didn't move the needle on waivers and Phil Tomasito being traded didn't move the needle. Well, those really weren't needle moving moves, first of all. But second of all, you want something bigger, then what happens? Then what happens when you don't get the response that you expect to get? It feels like the Rangers maybe are closer to a closed window than the Predators are. It feels like the Predators are kind of maybe more on the front end of with these veterans than maybe the Rangers are. When you look at this particular matchup, it's interesting. You talk about this is a team that's struggling for offense. The Rangers are kind of dead, right kind of in the middle when it comes to goals for and goals against in the league. But the thing that I think is so interesting is special teams, because one of the things Nashville has prided itself on is the penalty kill. First in the league, baby. Eat our dust. New York Rangers, second in the league on the penalty kill. So like, you're wanting to say like, okay, where is the advantage? And it may not come on special teams. Just want to throw it out there. Interestingly, yesterday at practice, 5 forwards on the first power play unit, which is something we saw in the last game briefly. That may be something, depending on game situation, Andrew Brunette said we could see again tonight. When I look at this game, for me, it is really all about offense. You're going to get great goaltending. You're going to get great goaltending. So who is going to be able to break through here for these teams, I think is going to be sort of the thing that decides this game. Would you agree? What are you watching for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a goaltender's duel. I mean, between whether it's presumably Saros and Shesterkin, or even if it's Jonathan Quick and Jussi Saarinen, like two very, very strong tandems between the two of these teams. So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's all going to be offense. It's all going to come down to who can break through, and not just break through the goaltending, but who can break through the defense, and not, and again, we've talked about this before, team defense, not just the actual defenseman, but the defense of the forwards as well, I think is going to be huge. But you've got to be able to score more goals. It sounds like you mentioned, the 5 forwards on the power play certainly sounds like the Predators are preparing to not have Josi against the Rangers. We don't know for sure yet at this point, but it sounds like they're preparing as if that is the case. We talked before about how okay, Josi comes out of the lineup. Oh my gosh, they come out and they beat the Dallas Stars and it's amazing and they're playing better and Josi must have been the problem. No. We had a whole episode about that. Go watch that one. I won't get back into it. But what I will say is that if you want to say that Josi is the quote unquote problem, you could argue that the problem is that this team was relying on him too much to carry them. And now he's out of the lineup. Now, this is not a long-term fix where you say, great, just don't play him and then problem solved. But I think
that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
No, but I talked about it before. I called it the Austin Matthews effect, but it could be the Roman Josi effect too. It's the same thing. And yes, I know Josi is a defenseman, but he was the main driver of your offense before he got hurt. And now if he's out, then it kind of sends a message to the entire team okay, we all have to step up our game and we need to get out there and work together as a group to score goals. And that, it seems like, had kind of been the issue with this team at the beginning of the year when they had this really slow start. Not specifically about Josi per se, but more about the team was relying too much on their quote unquote stars. Now you're starting to see, again, even in the loss to Colorado, they played so much better as a 5-man unit, and they looked so good. Again, they play like that more often than not. They're going to win more games than they lose, and they can fight their way back into the conversation here. And again, we need to see more of it. We need to see more consistent performances. We haven't seen back-to-back wins in, Dallas and Colorado, but we saw back-to-back top tier performances from this team. And so I think you're going to need to see that again against the Rangers, especially offensively. These are two teams that desperately need a win right now, and they're going to come into this game playing like it.
Coming up, we're going to talk about repercussions from tonight's game. Also, I did some in-depth investigative journalism, and we're going to talk about Stanley Cup rings coming up. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Emma. So we touched on this a little bit with Peter Laviolette and watching this Rangers game tonight. And I hate to say this, but let's just call it what it is. If you are the New York Rangers and you lose to one, again, of the least successful teams in the league as the Nashville Predators, I mean, their record states they're one of the least successful teams in the league. Does Laviolette's seat get hotter?
Again, it's hard to really tell because you feel like it should be kind of hot already because
one would think.
I mean, because again, the difference between like you said it well earlier that the Rangers are closer to their window closing. They're in their window right now, as are the Predators. But the Predators are more at the front end of their window, and New York kind of seems like it's on the back end. So that is a situation similar to Boston where you think like, maybe a mid-season coaching change, that brings change now because our time is now. We need to fix this now. I don't think that it's like, oh, you lose to Nashville and that's the
nail in the coffin.
That's the straw that breaks the camel's back here, because I think, like, again, you look at this roster, you look at this team. Yes, they have been underperforming and they have not been successful. I like that you put it that way. One of the least successful teams in the league, not to be confused with one of the worst teams in the league, because this is not a bad team. They have been playing like a bad team. That's for sure. They have absolutely been playing like a bad team, but this is not a bad team.
A week ago, I would say the Andrew Brunette train was moving along the tracks here, especially with the fan base. I think that the Predators have done enough in the Dallas game and in the game against Colorado to show, wait a minute, when they play Andrew Brunette's system, when they play like he wants them to play, this is a team that can compete. And so I feel like the repercussions for Andrew Brunette with a loss tonight are maybe not what they would have been a week ago, because I think you are seeing progress with this team. I think you're seeing them push through some of the things that really have been the hitch and the giddy up for them as well.
They are. And what have I said, which is that they, when you fall into a hole, you don't just pop back out. You got to climb out. Like, it's going to take work and it's going to be dirty and sweaty and ugly at times, but you have to do it. You dug yourself into this open grave basically. And now you have to climb out. You don't just jump out like it. So I think that that's what you're starting to see. Now, I need to see more. I need to see it like for more a longer stretch of games. But what we've seen for the past 2 games has been very, very good. And like I said, if they play like that, they're going to win more often than not because, you run into a goaltender in Mackenzie Blackwood, who, no offense, had no business being as hot as he was with Colorado, but Popoff King, good for him. So I think that you're going to run into that. They hung with, not even just hung with Colorado. I mean, they outplayed Colorado.
Yes.
They competed. They outplayed Colorado in the first period, 100%. They really fought back in the third. Again, like this is a team. And I was even seeing after that game, Colorado fans saying about Nashville, like, ooh, like if they keep playing like that, they could fight their way back into the playoff conversation. So I think that, there's enough to be encouraged about now at this point.
We talk about them fighting back into the playoff conversation. That's going to be an uphill battle. We have talked about this team being a Stanley Cup contender. I did some investigative journalism. I went all in. I went Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite, because we have Stanley Cup winners in this locker room. And so I went around and I talked to Jonathan Marchessault. I talked to Steven Stamkos. I talked to Ryan O'Reilly. I missed Luke Schenn. So I'm going to have to follow up with Luke Schenn. But just a little interesting tidbit. We talked about Stanley Cup rings. How often would you say that Ryan O'Reilly, Jonathan Marchessault, and Steven Stamkos get out their Stanley Cup rings and wear them, Emma? What's your guess?
Never.
What are they doing? They never wear them. What are they doing?
They're keeping them pretty. Look, I don't have a Stanley Cup ring, but I have a World Baseball Classic ring from my past life when I covered baseball and I was on the delegation for Team USA at the World Baseball Classic. We won gold. I got a ring and they asked for my ring size. And so I gave it to them. And then they came back and they were like, actually, we can't make it that small. So we can either make you like a custom one that's just not going to be as fancy. It doesn't have all the bling on it because it's smaller, or we can just give you the big one in the small size we have. And I was like, give me the big one. I'm not wearing it. Like it's something to show off.
I am beside myself, you all, beside myself. First of all, Jonathan Marchessault has the greatest ring in his possession, and he's not wearing it. Did you know, little bit of trivia, that Vegas Golden Knights Stanley Cup ring, the top screws off and it becomes a pendant, which he does not wear. And the inside of the ring is their arena. Doesn't wear it. Steven Stamkos said the only time that he has wore his Stanley Cup rings is he wore the first year's ring to the second year's ceremony to get the second ring. And he and Ryan O'Reilly wore them to the White House. That's it. What are we doing? Friends, if I had a Stanley Cup ring, I'd wear it to Publix. You'd see me at the deli counter ordering my roast beef in my Stanley Cup ring.
But see, then it's like, to me, that's the equivalent of like, would you walk around with a handful of cash? Just like,
yes.
No, because that's how you get robbed.
First of all, I walk in confidence because I studied MMA, but I don't think it's quite the same. Now, they are worth a lot of money. Marchessault's is in a safe. He keeps his in a safe. He does say that he has taken it out once, maybe every year, and looked at it, but they are not paying attention to their Stanley Cup rings. Let me just tell you something right now. And I may or may not have said this to Steven Stamkos. In 1991, I won the Senior Showmanship Award for the Shamrock Sheep Club at the Warren County Fair in Pennsylvania. You can bet your ass I know exactly where that trophy is. I still have that. These guys are they're like, yeah, I think I know where it is. You think like they're not wearing them. Ladies and gentlemen, I have offered to hold a class for the Stanley Cup winners in that locker room on all of the places they should be wearing their Stanley Cup rings. I said to Steven Stamkos, you don't ever just get up on a Saturday morning and go, I got to get the oil changed in the car. I think I'm going to pop my Stanley Cup ring on and go run errands. He looked at me and said, no. Little bit of investigative journalism for your day, for your game day. These guys are not wearing their rings.
I'm with him on that one. I will say, I know
Emma.
exactly where mine is. Like, I can tell you exactly where it is. It's not like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's proudly displayed on a shelf in my living room. But
I would like you to wear it for an episode. I just really, I think you should wear it.
I also have a Pan Am tournament ring, so I could have one for each hand.
What have we been doing all these months, Emma?
Yeah.
So
no,
yeah,
I'll wear it for the show. I'll wear it for you.
Okay.
I'll wear it for you, Ann.
Yeah. Stay tuned on tomorrow's show where Emma flashes her bling. And none of those Stanley Cup winners do. Y'all, somebody gave you a fat piece of amazing jewelry. I believe they said it's sometimes a little gaudy for everyday wear, to which I say, where is that line? But okay. Tonight, the Predators are going to be facing off against the Rangers. They're going to try to get the win, get back in the playoff conversation, and get to the Stanley Cup where they will win rings that they're never going to wear. We will, of course, be back tomorrow on the show to break down whatever we see happen tonight with the Rangers. So make sure you tune in tomorrow's show for that. Emma, before we log off, where can people find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. That's going to do it for this game day episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with that Rangers recap.